Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 66 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. Good Lord, we are back. It has been quite a minute, and there's a lot to talk about. We have a very, very good show planned for you guys. Today, we're going to talk about, first of all, what's going on with our lives. Second of all, what's next on the docket? Oh, yeah, dealing with setbacks, because that's one of the main reasons why this episode is as late as it is. And lastly, we have a brand new segment on the show that I'm super, super excited to bring to you guys. So, without further ado, let's get right into it, starting with our weekly update. How are you feeling, my friend?
I don't think we can call it a weekly update.
It's been 2 weeks.
It's been longer than 2 weeks, brother. It's been a while. It has been
Which
a
does
very, very long
involve
time,
a setback
actually.
that we will get into.
Yeah,
however,
there was a very serious setback involved with this. But it's been nice, finally free of finals, as you guys know. If you look at the story on Instagram, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. We're leading straight into a summer semester in about a week-ish. So not too much time to relax, but it's enough, you know. Every time that you get over any hurdle in life, it's just that feeling of relief when it's like, it's over. It's a nice feeling, you know, that serenity. Drink it in while you have it, you know.
Yeah, and you just got to enjoy it, right? Like, I feel like not enough people find enjoyment in the things that they should really be appreciating. You kind of focus too much on the next challenge, the next hurdle, the next difficult thing in front of you that's bothering you in life. But you don't take the time to say, hey, I have this week where I can just drive with the windows down, sun shining in my face and blasting my tunes and not have to think about a final exam, right? And that's just, it's bliss. It really is bliss. There's no other way to describe that. And that's something I definitely want to get into in more detail later. On my end, I guess realistically, aside from school stuff, life has been pretty good. I mean, once the exams were done, finally getting back into the gym more regularly, and it's just, you just feel happy knowing that that a challenge is over. And just every day feels better with the sun out, which is like, I feel like everyone should know this by now, but if you get out of bed and you look outside and the sun is out and you're not immediately smiling, what are you doing? Why are we not smiling, guys? The sun is out. It's a beautiful day. Like, the second I jump out of bed, I have this window that's next to my bed. So if my bed is here, I have a window right here and a window over here. This window I completely block out, but this one, the blinds are not super dark. Like, they're not blackout curtains. So if the sun is shining, my room is illuminated almost instantaneously. So these days, when the sun is out and it's not raining all the time, the second I wake up, I stand there and I just, you know that picture of the dog just standing there like, yeah, that I do that first thing in the morning. I just go stand there, open the blinds, and I just do this. And I just soak up the sun, and I just feel 10 times better. I know that obviously there's science behind that with vitamin D and how the sun is good for you, but it's also just a mentality thing. Just seeing the light first thing in the morning, it's so great for your mental state if you focus on it. You really got to focus on it and be grateful for the sun being out. And if you live in, British Columbia, it's pretty easy to be grateful for the sun considering that it rains a lot. So when the sun is out, you appreciate it a lot, right?
Yeah, I think like the idea there is like just find happiness in the small things because there's a lot of them, you know? It seems trivial because, like, hey, the sun is literally there every single day, right? I remember we talked about it on one episode or, like, it was a while back, but I remember because we made a TikTok out of it, was how one day you had, like, a final and you were super stressed about it, and then we were driving on the road, we saw 2 Porsches and the Red Bull Mini Cooper, and the sun was shining, and that was enough to put us in a good mood, you know? And I feel like that idea that all those little things can really have an impact if you really just focus on them. You know, there's a lot of beautiful things to be found in the world. And I find in my personal experience that when I look at something beautiful, I feel like it's a natural happiness, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you see something nice. So your natural reaction is to smile or have some degree of happiness. So if you can observe the beauty in the world, I think you're like automatically one step closer to a somewhat happier life because you're becoming grateful, aware, and, present in the things that actively, make life more beautiful.
Yeah. Awareness is like, sorry to interject here for a second, but awareness is one word that you said that I really think is important, being aware of those thoughts, because your brain churns out so many thoughts in a day, but we don't give a lot of weight to it. We don't pay attention to every single thought that goes through our mind, right? That would be crazy. You pay attention to specific ones. If you can learn to divert your attention to thoughts that fuel a more positive mindset, that make you feel more grateful about life, your life becomes much better and you feel a lot happier. For example, if you're walking down the street, right, somebody who focuses all their attention on negative thoughts, on the difficulties and stresses of life, obviously they're not going to be happy when they see a beautiful rose bush, right? Whereas with me, when I'm walking down the street, if I see a beautiful flower, I'll take a picture of the flower, and I have a literal folder in my phone for just natural beauty, whether it's sunsets, whether it's beautiful ocean views or flowers, whatever it is, I keep it in this folder because it's beautiful and it makes me smile. Why? Because I focus on it. I choose to think, man, I live in a world where there is natural beauty. I get to experience this every single day. And on top of that, I live in a place where I can do that. Right? Not everybody gets to walk around and say, oh yeah, 5 minutes away from my house, there are all these beautiful flowers or a beautiful ocean an hour drive away. Not everyone gets to say that, man. I'm lucky I get to say that. And for example, one time last week when me and Raj, shout out Raj, we went to go and find pucks in his old neighborhood because we were trying to shoot. And we went there and we're digging around looking for these pucks in this bush. And then I'm like, oh, that person has a bunch of nice flowers on their driveway. So I walk over onto their driveway and I'm taking pictures of the flowers. Raj is like, so we're just completely trespassing onto somebody else's property, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I feel like they'd appreciate the fact that I like their garden. And on top of that, I wasn't stepping on any grass or anything. Point is, appreciate those little things and give awareness to the positive thoughts. And that's how you really make your life significantly better.
I mean, if I want to take it back, one thing I mentioned a while ago was a little excerpt I read from Man's Search for Meaning, where while in the concentration camp, you know, one of the, I guess you would call them like, I don't know, inmates, I guess, residents, if you will, says...
I would say victims is probably...
Victim, yes. Yeah, definitely. That's a much better word. But one of the victims, you know, they're all working in this field. And one of them, you know, he pauses and he's like, everybody, like, come here, gather around. And he just calls everyone over to look at the sunset. And he says in that moment, how beautiful could the world be? Think about the fact that, you know, somebody in a concentration camp is able to find happiness in a sunset, right?
Do you remember you brought this up last time?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that I brought this up. Because I feel like it's just very pertinent to what we're talking about, is the idea that those simple things can help you out in such a dire situation. And it's not easy. Like, I'm willing to bet you, you know, those people probably saw 100 sunsets before they looked at the one that made them realize, you know, yeah, there's still good stuff. Like, that's reality. Is you can't really just flip the switch and go instantly, okay, every time I see a flower, immediately I'm happy. Every time I see the sun, I'm really happy, right? It's not something you can do in an instant. And I'm sure even for you or for me, it takes time of observing these things and realizing, oh, this is beautiful, right? And the idea of beauty is so subjective because everybody sees it in different ways. You know, one of my favorite quotes that I love going back to is, it's ordinary to love the beautiful, but it's beautiful to love the ordinary, right? For me, I consider just looking out my window into just green beauty, right? Or even just looking at like a nice skyline of a city. It's not natural landscape, but it's still beauty, right? When I stand there with my friends and I just hang out with them, that's beauty. It's beyond just what is known as natural beauty. It's not just the sun or the flowers. Those are vessels, but there's an infinite possibility for beauty, because that's what's beautiful about it, is that it's literally all in your own eyes. For example, you and I, we both draw happiness when we see an expensive watch or an expensive car. You know, the other day I was driving, I saw a Ferrari, I lit up. I was so happy. You know, maybe it's not the same for you, but I'm willing to bet you that there's something out there that you feel happy about looking at that I wouldn't. There is beauty to be found in everything, not just what people consider objectively beautiful or what everybody else says, oh, you know, look at the sun, that'll make you 10 times happier. If you don't like the sun, then maybe the rain is what makes you happy. Maybe you enjoy looking in the rain. Maybe you enjoy a thunderstorm. Do you and find the beauty that suits you, because I can tell you that there is an infinite number of vessels for true beauty on this earth.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very, very good point, because when you said maybe you don't like the sun, I was about to turn around and say, whoa, let's pump the brakes here. Sun is good for everyone. But then you said maybe you like the rain. And that's a very good point, because a lot of people do like the rain. People like the calming noise of rain. just the simple white noise that comes along with it. And perhaps you like the water, right? Who knows? People could have very different opinions. And the same thing is true for cars, like you said. There's that trending, it was trending a long time ago. It's not trending anymore. But there was this trending audio once of this girl, and it's her voice, and she pretty much just says, "Why do you care so much about a car? It's just metal." To them being people who don't care about cars, it's just metal slapped together. But to someone who appreciates cars, it's craftsmanship, it's beauty, it's elegance, it's performance, and above all, it's craftsmanship, right? Just seeing this beautiful machine come together and what it's able to accomplish is something that makes a lot of every car enthusiast smile. That same enjoyment is not found by everybody. And same thing like you said about watches. A lot of people just look at a watch and say, "Oh, just tells the time." But to someone who knows, "Oh, these are the movements. This is the power reserve of the watch," or "This is what it's made of. This took 80 hours to make," or "This was hand done, hand engraved." Those kinds of things don't mean anything to a lot of people. But to people who care about watches, it means the world, right? And that's why people are willing to spend a lot of money on it. And that's a big thing I do want to point out is the stuff in this world, especially when it comes to cars and watches, is not about money. And that's a big misconception I think a lot of people get about them. Because, for example, if someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, you just like cars because you want to show off. You want to drive a Lamborghini or a Ferrari because you want people to look at you and go, 'Oh, he's got money and he's this big shot guy.'" In reality, if you ask me, "Hey, why do you want to drive a Lamborghini," for example, my answer is, I want to hear a screaming V12 or 6.5 liter naturally aspirated V12 sitting right behind me, just screaming the whole ride home. That's what I want. I don't care about anybody else looking at me. I don't care about how other people perceive me or if they think I'm successful. None of that matters, man. It's just about my enjoyment. If I'm sitting there and I'm smiling, that's all that matters. So I encourage every single one of you to go out there and find the same. If you get that kind of enjoyment out of driving a Toyota Camry or a Honda Accord, I'm not going to tell you to go try and buy a Lamborghini. You don't need it, man. Go find what you're happy about. Or if you like hiking these stony cliffs with no forests in them, like no trees, go for it. I'm not going to go tell you to go walk through the Amazon rainforest. The point is, life is so expansive that there's so many options and things that you can do, right? That you don't need to sit here and try to conform to what everybody else enjoys. The point is, do you.
And I think, there's a bit of a counterpoint there in what I have found with a lot of the trends nowadays. There has begun a trend to not follow trends. And I think it's a bit paradoxical in my opinion, right?
So it's becoming popular to not follow trends.
Yeah. And I think that's very real when it comes to like fashion or music especially, which we've talked about, or even endeavors, what people try to accomplish in life. And I agree, to a degree, you don't want to just be like a cookie cutter version of other people. But if you're really avoiding doing things you enjoy just because a lot of people do them, are you really finding fulfillment in what you do? People, for example, will try their best to have the most underground music taste. And I think, that's pretty cool. But if you don't even enjoy the music that much, if there's really music that you actually enjoy, but it's mainstream, so I guess I can't listen to it. If anything, you're not really being yourself because you're letting everybody else shape you. In trying to be different, you are conforming. That's what I find to be so funny. In the pursuit of being different, you are just being a mold made by everybody else. Every time you want to branch out and do your own thing, you say, "Oh, no, other people are doing that. Let me bring myself back to here because other people are here." And you do that all around until you have this shape that, doesn't exist. Nobody has ever seen this before, but it's not even you.
It was made by other people.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
The people that choose what they do based on what other people do will always be made by them. Whether you follow or you choose actively to be different. And this is not a saying as to everybody go out and be, the next, be the same as the person that came before you. No. Carve your own path. But just that. Carve your own path. It doesn't need to be a different path. It doesn't need to be a path that no one has ever touched in any way whatsoever, because naturally by your existence, it's going to be a path that nobody's touched before. Nobody's ever going to see the world through your eyes. Nobody's going to feel your heart. Nobody's going to think like your mind. You are unique. Nobody is the same as another person. For example, there's the thing where no two people have the same iris pattern. Not even identical twins have the same iris pattern. It's different for every single person. Fingerprints, completely different for every single person, right? We are all different. Even identical twins are different. They think differently. Their heart feels differently. So to think that, oh man, everybody has these shoes, everybody wears these pants, everybody listens to this music, everybody drives this car, I can't really do that because I don't want to be like everybody else. Actively, if you're avoiding the things you enjoy, what's it really worth?
And see, this is a big thing for me because I hear all the time people say your play, not specifically to me, but I've seen, for example, if someone posts, oh, I really like this song, somebody will say your entire music taste is shaped by TikTok. Number one, TikTok has 90% of the music that most people listen to on it already. So if you're going to sit here and tell me that the songs that you listen to aren't on TikTok, maybe they're not, okay? But the way I see it is that doesn't really make your music better than the music that a lot of other people listen to. For example, if I play a Lil Tecca song that's popping on, like for example, if I play Dark Thoughts by Lil Tecca right now, a lot of people will be like, oh, he's just listening to it because it's blowing up on TikTok, blah, blah, blah. Little do you know that I've had Lil Tecca in my top 3 since he first started making music. I really, really like Lil Tecca. I listen to him a lot. Since his first album, I've been listening to him like crazy. If you look at my playlist, which has a combination of many, many artists on it. If I like a song, I'll put it on there. It's not just about if it's mainstream, if it's underground, or anything like that. My playlist is completely my own. If I like a song, I add it on there, right? If you look at my playlist, there are so many songs by Lil Tecca on there, probably more than any other artist, okay? And yet, if I play that song, Dark Thoughts, which recently came out and is popping on social media, if I play it right now, people will say, oh, he's a bandwagon. But they don't even know my story. So why do you think that everybody else's opinions about your music taste really matter? It doesn't, right? The point is, if it's good music, if you enjoy it, listen to it. If it's good clothing and you like dressing like that, wear it. The point is to not let other people dictate your actions because it just doesn't make any sense to live this life that way.
Yeah, it's just not, to me, it's just not worth it, man. Is it really fulfilling?
Dude, this podcast literally wouldn't exist. And the thing is,
yeah.
I get told a lot by people saying, everybody has a podcast now. Why are you doing it? It's oversaturated. Are they right? Sure, I don't disagree. There are tons of podcasts out there, probably more than there ever have been in the entire world. And that number, though, is going to keep going up. And that's my point. At the end of the day, whether I make a podcast or not, the next guy is going to go ahead and do it. The next person who is ambitious enough to take the leap and say, oversaturation doesn't scare me. The fact that everybody else is doing it doesn't scare me. The point is I'm different. The point is I have a different take on life, a different perspective, a different story to tell. And I think it's fun and enjoyable, so I do it. I don't let the opinions of other people slow me down. The next person is going to say that and do it anyways. So whether I do it or not, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter to the rest of the world. If I'm happy doing this, I'm going to go out and do it. And that's the message that everybody needs to walk away with at the end of this episode. The point is, if you really like something, you got to go do it. Don't let anybody tell you you shouldn't do it because there's a lot of other people doing it. There's so many people in the world. There's always going to be a lot of people doing something, right? Maybe you're early in an industry. Even then, over time, there's going to be a bunch of people who get into it. The point is, just do it. Which is just the craziest thing because it just reminds me of Shia LaBeouf and how I've seen so many videos talking about how it was never just a meme.
Yeah, I know.
But you were just too young to understand.
It's very interesting that, like, as you grow older, you kind of, like, really understand things a lot more that you just kind of didn't as a kid. It never really hit like that, and you look back on it and you're like, oh my God, this was like a very serious thing, I think the Shia LaBeouf one is huge to me. The song Let Her Go. Dude,
that song is so deep. Oh my God.
It's tragic, honestly, if you really think about it. And like, we were just bumping it back in the day, singing it, thinking like, oh, this is just a fire song. Yeah. But then you really think about it and you're like, damn, this is just really tragic.
On the topic of music, you see that with a lot of songs, really. Like you just listen to it, you sing the lyrics, and you don't really know it when you're younger. Then you grow up and you start to analyze it. You're like, wait, that's kind of crazy. And obviously, this is a far less, well, I guess it is emotional, but in the other direction. If you look at Pumped Up Kicks, that's a song that everybody was bumping like crazy, singing. Obviously, probably the adults at the time understood the lyrics and were like, whoa, what are we talking about here? But to a lot of kids who were listening to it, they didn't know, and now they've grown up and understood it, and it's a different story, right? But for example, when you're talking about those really, really tragic songs that you don't understand, it paints a picture on the kind of adversities and setbacks that people face all the time, which is just one of those things that you got to learn to deal with in life, right? And that's one of the main topics that we were going to get to today, because that's the main reason why this episode is as late as it is, which is the story I'm going to get into right now. Right after final exam season ended, the GOAT Raj keeps popping up in this story, but he was like, yo, I'm going to go to the driving range after my exam's done. Do you want to go? I'm like, I'm not even good at golf, but sure, let's go. This is my second or third time being at a driving range. And this time I actually did try a driver. Funny enough, the first couple times I went, I didn't even have a driver. I kept on just using a 9-iron. Yeah, just practicing. But this time I picked up a driver and we had a blast just hitting. This is probably not that crazy for people who actually play golf, but for someone who was driving for the first time, my first 7 shots in a row were all like 250 plus. So I felt pretty decent about that. I know that's not that crazy, but I felt pretty happy about it, especially as a beginner. Point is, we had a lot of fun and it was a great time. The problem is, when I left the house, we had just recorded an episode 66. But Akita, you're recording episode 66 right now. Yeah. Because episode 66, the first edition, is gone forever. And that's because when leaving the house, I forgot that the SD cards were in my pocket. And when I got to the golf course, I realized they were still there. So I was like, okay, I should definitely not touch my pockets and we'll be good. I get home, pull out SD card number 1, everything's fine. And I go to reach for SD card number 2, and I'm patting my pockets, I'm flipping them inside out, nowhere to be seen. And at this point, I start panicking. I'm like, oh no, dude, this is not good. So I go check the car, the entire thing. I'm like digging out all the covers, checking in between the seats. It's not there. I checked my shorts 3 times before I put it in my laundry bin. I checked the entire house. I asked Raj to check his car if it was in there. I checked the golf course. I even called them. Nothing. Literally nothing. It was just gone into the abyss. And so that episode was lost forever. And I had to order a new SD card, which we're using right now. So lo and behold, here we are. Episode 66 being made again. And that's the thing. When I first lost that card, I was shocked because we've been doing this for over a year now and I haven't had to deal with anything like that where we've fully made content and it's been gone instantly. Actually, that's not true. I've definitely edited episodes that have been crashed by Premiere Pro before. But losing the SD card, that was really sucky in the moment. But then almost instantaneously, I was like, all right, it's lost now. What can you do, right? Bounce back, get back to it, and order another one and get after it again. That's really all you can do. I think in life, the most important thing that determines success and overall happiness is not how much you achieve and how happy. Let me rephrase that. Not how much you achieve and how high your highs are. It's how quickly you can rebound from your lows. Does that make sense?
Well, absolutely. I'm just surprised you haven't quoted Rocky yet.
I was getting there.
Oh, okay.
Dude,
okay.
I was like, God, I was getting there.
I'm listening to you talk about it. I'm like, okay, so we're just saying that we're just paraphrasing the
No,
Rocky
I was getting there. I was getting there. Point is, there's the famous clip from Rocky where Sylvester Stallone is talking and he says, in life, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and get back up, right? Yeah, something like that.
And keep going.
Point is, if you can go through a setback, now, granted, in the grand scheme of things, losing an SD card is not that crazy, right? You and I have faced much bigger setbacks than that. And I'm sure you at home have faced significant setbacks too. But at least in this content creation, that's the worst setback I've had to face because yet, to this day, knocking on wood, my cameras haven't exploded and none of the equipment has broken down before. And aside from Premiere Pro, which keeps crashing.
I mean, the cameras have overheated like 5 or 6 times while recording.
That's actually a really good point too. Yeah,
I would say it's definitely been, and I feel like we've definitely lost episodes before. No. I feel like we have.
We've never lost an episode. Huh. That's the first time that's ever happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Actually, no, maybe you're right. Point is, okay, we all face the setbacks, but the one thing that I've learned not only from this incident, but from other incidents, especially in the past semester of school that I've learned, is just you're going to go through a lot of sucky things. That's just inherent with life. Suffering is a part of living. You can't avoid it. It's simply an unavoidable fate. The question is, how much suffering can you endure and still get back up to your baseline? Because imagine if you have, let's say, a happiness line, let's call it. And let's call the happiness line 0 on this graph. And anything positive or successful puts you in the positive range of the graph, and anything sucky or kind of negative or a setback puts you in the negative range. If you can spend majority of your time in that positive graph, obviously your life is going to be good. But then in those moments where you have a really bad event happen and it just takes a huge, sharp downturn into the negative, the red, how quickly can you pull that graph back up into the positive range, right? Because at the end of the day, as you move along that graph, time is ticking. The hourglass of life is constantly flowing. So you don't want to spend a lot of time down in that red zone, even if it sucks. Even if you go through something that's really painful, you got to try and get back up to that baseline and then eventually up into the positive zone as much as possible. And that, I think, determines a happy life very, very quickly.
I think if you really wanted to take that analogy of like a graph with a baseline, I would say it's very important to stress that your baseline always moves. I don't think that there's a set baseline. What made you happy 10 years ago is not the same thing that makes you happy now, right? As a kid, you are happy when when there's a snow day at school, simply, and that could make your entire month, or you get to go outside and play an imaginary game with your friends. That's enough to make you happy for so long.
Well, but the key is not what makes you happy. You're talking about imagining your Y variable here, so the up and down part of happiness. It's not about what is making you happy, it's about how happy you are.
Yeah, but again, I feel like the reason I say it is because I wouldn't.
Okay, I get it.
I wouldn't want somebody who goes this much into the red, comes up this much, to still believe they're unhappy, right?
Right.
Being that, yes, net, you may not be at the best point in your life, but you still have things to be happy about. For me, I would say right now I'm probably at the best point mentally in my life. How happy I am. Like, I'm very, very, very fulfilled and happy with how my life is right now. But years ago, I wasn't nowhere near where I am right now, and I had gone through some things, but I still would consider myself to have been happy at that point, right? If I had to imagine my level, I think I went from like a this, and now I'm like here. Like, I think I had my low point. But prior to that low point, even though that's not as great as this, I don't really look at them as like, one is substantially better, or like, when I was on the come up, I felt always garbage. I think that while it's important to set the baseline, be happy with progress, right? Is that even if you're in the trenches, if you can take another step, if you can start getting that, positive derivative, that upward slope, you're, doing something right. And this actually flashes me back to an event I went to for university. It was like a leadership conference. Mm-hmm. And I think I talked about it on a previous episode. I want to say I have. But we had to fill out this thing called a wellness wheel, where you basically just fill out honestly, I realize I'm giving business majors like a bad name with this entire activity. Like, really, we do coloring books. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. But in like that moment, you're just supposed to like, show like how do you feel about your wellness in different aspects of your life? Physical health, your mental health, your financial health, your like all these things, right?
Yeah.
And I scored myself pretty high, and I would say that I'm a pretty happy person. But I looked around and I saw people scoring themselves pretty low. And then, they came and they asked me to share to everybody, like, just share your thing. So I was like, okay, why not? And I explained to them, like, I filled it out not because I think that objectively I'm not the happiest person in the world. Objectively, I'm not the most physically healthy person in the world. Objectively, I'm not the most financially healthy person in the world. Lord knows I'm broke. But still, it's not your wellness is not based on objectively where you are. It's based on your satisfaction with where you are. And that doesn't mean complacency. I know that we have a bit of a riff in the idea of satisfaction and complacency, but at least for now, it's okay to not be okay and still be happy. You know, external factors and success don't really correlate in the same way. And there's no definition of, when you should be happy. I believe that we all deserve it at every point in our lives. Whether we're willing to accept happiness is, it's a different story. But when you're in those bad moments and you have a small win, you shouldn't be like, oh, well, I'm still in the trenches. Like, yeah, everything went wrong with my life, but, some grandma called me handsome today. That's still something to be happy about. That's still something to put you in a good mood, right? So I think that baseline's ever changing. And I think it shifts with you. In my opinion, it should shift with you.
Yeah.
Such that if things go down, any little thing that can get you back up there should make you feel good. And then as you go up, your baseline should also increase, right?
I'm telling you, man, life is just stocks. It's just so crazy because this entire graphic that we're drawing here is just ups and downs. So pretty much just a stock chart that we're talking about here. But the other thing is, to those of you that have investment accounts or brokering accounts, you'll know that one of the metrics that most platforms show is a daily profit loss. So it's not just about your overall profit loss, but it's also about how much you changed today. So it's 100% right that you got to focus on those little wins as well. In those moments where, yesterday I was down 1,000, but now I'm up, or I'm down 700, let's say, for example. It's still a positive change on the day. So you see that green number and it makes you feel a little bit better. There is one thing that I just realized once you mentioned business that I'm ashamed that I didn't put in the intro, but I hope that you all can forgive me and bear with me because we did record this the first time and I remembered it the first time, so it kind of slipped my mind this time. We didn't even talk about the fact that the last episode we uploaded was a guest episode.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
See?
Yeah, it's been so long.
I just wanted to say, first of all, shout out Rashawn, man. What a legend. Absolute banger of an episode. If you guys haven't listened to it, please, please, please go listen to it. It was absolutely wonderful to go and listen to somebody else on the pod and hear their personal experiences. And these two, they mesh really, really well together. Honestly, I would say connecting almost on the level that you and I connect on already, right? Now, granted, they have a bunch of chemistry and you guys can hear all about that in that episode. Please go check it out. But I just wanted to say huge thank you to Rashawn for hopping on and doing a wonderful job. Absolutely killed it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I said it all, on the last episode that got deleted, So we had a rather extensive conversation about it. I think that the guest episodes are just so brilliant, able to bring in a new perspective. I know you guys probably get tired of hearing us yap for, 60 hours probably about now. So, it's definitely amazing to be able to bring on, a guest, a new person, to bring that, external opinion or to even elaborate on ideas that we haven't thought of, which is another note to you guys also is always seek other differing opinions or different opinions, in the sense that even me, I consider myself happy. That doesn't mean that I'm never going to go talk to anybody else or get their opinions on mental health because I'm perfect. Yeah. No, I still have places to grow. Somebody can come up with an analogy I never thought of. Somebody could bring something up that I never thought of. And I saw that happen live on the Rashawn episode. So you guys should all make sure and go check that out because you'll hear things that you'll never hear us say.
100%. And talking about seeking different perspectives is a fantastic point to make because there's a really, really good story on what everybody gets wrong about comparison. And this is my biggest point here. Everyone has heard the saying, comparison is the thief of joy, right? It's a very common quote. But why does nobody flip that quote around and talk about the fact that comparison can make you a far happier person? It can give you joy. It can give you happiness. Now, I'm going to cut here for a second, and I'm going to tell you right now, I know why this guy is smiling. It's because he said it before. He said it before on the pod. Trust me, I remember.
Okay, good. I was making sure you were going to credit me.
No, I credit you. Trust me. I got a steel trap for a lot of the stuff that we've said on the pod before. I know that we've said this before, but it's kind of a different twist because this story that I have illustrates it perfectly. Anyways, point is, a lot of people don't focus on how comparison can make you happy. It can make you a lot happier than you would normally be. And the moment that this brings me back to is us driving to campus because we had a final exam. So it's me and Kevin in the car, and we're driving to school. And we're both kind of cooked for this exam. Out of all the exams, this was probably the one that we were most cooked for. And we're sitting there for a moment spiraling like, oh my God, dude, we're so cooked. We didn't study. It's all over. Oh my God. I don't even know what to do. Honestly, just insert image of dog here. That dog meme. That's the whole point. That's how we're feeling. Like, it's so over. And then Kevin just turns around and he looks at me. And I'll never forget this. He just looked at me with the straightest face and said, you know what, Akita? I don't have cancer, so it's a great day. And I just looked at him for half a second, and I just burst out laughing. I couldn't contain myself. I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. We're sitting there driving to impending doom, and this guy says, yep, but we don't have cancer. Happy. That's all it took. And I sat there for a second, I was like, he's 100% right. Things could be a lot worse, man. A lot worse. And that's where the comparison comes in. You only think about how much better things could be. You don't think about how much worse it could be. You could have cancer. You could be terminally ill. You could lose both your parents in a car accident tomorrow. Point is, a lot of these bad things can happen, and yet you don't acknowledge how blessed you really are. But once you take a second to reflect on it and say, man, these bad things haven't happened to me, I should be really grateful. That's when you start to be appreciative. And that gratitude makes you 10 times happier. So ladies and gentlemen, the next time that you feel like you're going to something that absolutely sucks, just think to yourself, at least I don't have cancer. And in the off chance where you do have cancer, you're still alive, and we are wishing you all the best.
We pray for you, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
But, very funny. I do want to bring up that, a lot of the times people look at it as like, okay, oh, so, some people say that comparison makes me sad. Some people say it makes me happy. So what do I do? And, I would ask that person, who told you had to take both? Who told you that if supposedly you want to use comparison as a tool, that you have to be both happy and sad from it, right? Is it so simple as to take it all or to take some of it? One of the people that I come back to is, oh no, I'm going to get demonetized, Andrew Tate. With him, a lot of people hate him because, yeah, he says a lot of really stupid things, controversial things. I'm willing to bet he doesn't even believe in half of it. He just says it to go viral. But in any case, if you look at some of the things he says, you'd be like, oh, you know what? Like, that's pretty good. He encourages, people to work hard, have a good work ethic, to care about the people around them. Does some of the things he say completely contradict that? Absolutely. But in a sense, he has said some good things. Does that mean we should throw all of it out? Or should we just, take some of the good stuff? And, for example, it's like if you bake a tray of muffins and half of them are rotten, do you throw away the entire tray? Okay. Or do you at least keep half of them?
This is under the pretense that the good muffins are sterile. There's no bacteria transfer or anything like that.
Yes, sure. Yes. I mean, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, I just had to make that because that analogy in and of itself is like a bit risky to play with, just because if half the tray is rotten, there's a good chance there's rotten bacteria and stuff on the other muffins.
It's pretty simple that if I say half of them are rotten and half of them are good, then half of them are good.
I feel like somebody would have said that in the comments. To that one person out there, I know you got me.
Anyway, the idea being that you don't have to take it all. Yeah. You have the liberty of picking and choosing, which sounds crazy because in today's world, we're always taught that you don't get to pick and choose, that if you want to take the good, you have to take it with the bad. But the subjectiveness of life being that it's up to you, it's in your eyes, it's in your head, it's in your mind, you get to control it, is why do you need to take the bad? Yeah. Who told you that you had to take the bad? Who is forcing you to take the bad? Am I saying for certain that you will cut it out? Absolutely not. If you think you can avoid comparison for your entire life, then you are a fool.
Sorely mistaken.
Everybody is a victim to it. It happens. It's a natural phenomenon that's a part of life.
I don't know if you should say victim. Well, actually, yeah, I guess you are.
Like, right?
It's unwilling, realistically.
I would say the reason I say victim is because everybody goes through negative comparison.
Yeah.
It's not just a game of, I will choose to only actively ever use it for happiness.
Yeah, no.
It's that I can focus on making it useful for happiness.
Absolutely.
But sometimes you're going to be led astray. Sometimes you're going to think about it in a bad way, and it's going to steal your joy. That's reality. That's the thing about all these advice that, all these gurus give. Even us saying all this advice is that there's no 100% success rate.
Yeah.
If there was, then there would be no point to living because you would never need to experience sadness again. All these tools are just that. They're tools. But every day in your life, you're going to come across a situation in which you would have needed a different tool, one that you don't have. And you can keep adding to your tool belt, but I can assure you that life has more problems than you'll ever find solutions. So sometimes you have to be okay with the fact that you're not going to be equipped to handle a problem. That sometimes you're going to feel bad. That's a reality.
Yeah.
But you can't let that draw away from making an effort to be happy. Just because something comes with a price tag of sadness doesn't mean it doesn't come with a benefit of happiness.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you just have to take that leap towards something that gives you fulfillment, that gives you joy, that gives you happiness, so that you can combat the times that that negativity and that sadness comes your way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that idea of just taking the good, because I've had a conversation with many people. Many people don't like the fact that I use Andrew Tate as an example on the podcast. And their argument for that is, oh, how could you use someone who's involved in, I'm not going to make any claims on whether he's guilty or innocent, but involved in a case where really bad things have happened, allegedly. How can you use that person as an example for people living a more positive life when he clearly is involved in something that's not so positive? And like you said, the argument is you don't have to take everything that person does. For example, realistically, then the only person you should take advice from ever is God, if you believe in God. Because God is realistically the only person who has never committed a fault. And then even then, many people question God's existence and all that stuff. So then the question becomes, who can you really trust and take advice from? Nobody. If you're going to sit here and tell me that all of a sudden you're better than Andrew Tate because you're not involved in this case, sure, maybe you're not better than him involved there, but then what about all the good aspects that he's preaching that you clearly are not qualified to talk about, right? So there's always going to be good and bad things in this world. The question is, where do you draw inspiration from? Because to me, no matter what somebody talks about, I'm able to find the good in that person, take that and use it as inspiration for a new day. For example, when I talk about any of my friends on the podcast, if I mention Raj, if I mention Kevin, if I mention Eric, I don't sit here talking about any of the bad things that they do, right? First of all, they're great people. They don't do dumb stuff that I have to really bring up and be like, oh, they did this horrible thing. But even if they did, I wouldn't talk about those things. I'd talk about the situations where they inspired me. I would talk about the situations where they made my life better. And if you can focus on that, life just becomes 10 times better. And so filtering what you really focus on is everything. Because at the end of the day, your mental state is a culmination of all the information you take in and how you respond to it. And in a day and age where there are so many negative things going on in the world, there's always a new case. There's always a new incident. For example, in the last week, not even last week, it was like what? Was it yesterday?
2 days ago, I think, 2 or 3 days ago.
2 days ago. 2 days ago. Today's Monday. It was on Saturday, where at the Lapu Lapu Festival in Vancouver, you had this driver who drives through the festival, and many people were left injured. And yeah. The point is, those things. First of all, hearts and condolences and prayers go out to all the people out there affected by it. Number one thing, first and foremost, with any tragedy, but also like. There's just so many things going on in the world. You could talk about a new tragedy happens every day, but nobody wants to focus on the good thing. Nobody wants to talk about the good news. And ladies and gentlemen, that leads me perfectly to our brand new segment on the show, which I am dubbing the Weekly Woohoos. Now, the reason why I called it this, it kind of sucks because Nithik's reaction was priceless.
It was pretty good the first time.
It was good. It was really good the first time.
I've heard it again now, and I can't be inauthentic and fake a reaction.
You can't be like, oh my God, brand new segment. That's
guys,
crazy.
when you see those like thumbnail videos of me or like the pictures of me going like, that's a genuine reaction to the masterpiece of an episode we make. You know, Precisely. I don't fake my reactions, so
yeah,
I couldn't fake it here.
Which is such a shame because the first time when I brought up this segment, he didn't know that I was gonna make a new segment on the show. So it does kind of suck, but here we are. Regardless, point is focusing on the good. Weekly Woohoos. Inspiration behind the name is just I had to make it kind of sound like the news, you know? So woohoos kind of rhymes with news. And also alliteration, like you said, weekly woohoos. Actually, that had nothing to do with it.
Explain what it is.
That's a great point. It's a great point. Enough, what's the word? Floundering? Enough floundering. Let's get to the substance of the section. Point is, every week we're going to try to cover some positive news headlines. So we'll keep it short, but point is we're going to cover some good things that are happening in the world to restore your faith in humanity and in the rest of the world. So for me, recently with exams piling up, one thing that I do in my free time when I'm done studying and I'm trying to wind down is I watch nature documentaries. If you ask this guy, you'll see me watching the whole Nat Geo 9 Mile spiel. Okay, that's what I do in my free time. I love animals. Okay, but as I was watching one, there was a statistic that came up talking about how much national parks have affected the world. And national parks are obviously protected lands for animals. So there's no human intervention there. They just get to live their life in these protected areas. And 15% of all land on Earth and 8% of all oceans are what we like to call protected areas by national parks. Now, that might not sound like a lot of land, but this is obviously not including inhabitable land. So you're not including Antarctica. You're not including the middle of the ocean where there's no human intervention normally. The point is places that humans could normally take resources where they're not. And this has caused a lot of new animals to be able to flourish and endangered species to recover. So first point is nature is recovering. Is it extremely rapidly? No. But the point is there's more awareness about it now than ever before, and that's what we love to see. So if you're somebody who's interested in that, go donate to a good cause, man. There's always great charities out there and great, what are they? They're funds, I guess, that you can support. Point number one, wildlife recovering. Point number two, this is a bit of old news, but there was a doctor in South Korea who has actually found a way to revert cancer cells back to precancerous versions without killing them, which is a huge problem with chemotherapy, obviously, because the main thing it does is it uses radiation to kill cancerous cells, but it also damages the rest of the cells of your body, right? So huge development in South Korea. So definitely something that all of you guys should check into because it's a huge leap in science and modern medicine. Last thing is, this is obviously very old news because this was planned when this news first came out. Tariffs have been rolled back for 90 days. At least we can smile about that. Point is, that's your weekly woohoos for the week. Ladies and gentlemen, focus on the good. And go, honestly, read more about these headlines out there because I don't want to make a massive segment of this show dedicated to just talking about those couple of good things happening in the world. I don't know. You guys can honestly give us input. If you think the name is stupid, let me know in the comments. If you think there's ways to improve the segment, let me know. If you have headlines of your own that you want us to include in the show, because we are not omnipotent beings who have access to all this info. We have access to it. We might not find all these headlines. If you hear a positive story, man, drop it in the comments. We'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Talk about it in the weekly woohoos. Point is, new segment on the show. Let me know what you guys think.
And that perfectly leads us to today's sponsor, Morning Brew. I'm just kidding, guys. But it's actually a really cool newsletter that you guys should check out. I was watching a YouTube video and a YouTuber was sponsored by them. So I decided to sign up for their newsletter.
Yeah, whoa. Let's pump the brakes for a second.
Yeah.
You signed up for a newsletter?
Yeah.
Dude, you are not the type to fall for a sponsorship, which means that it clearly must be something good.
It's really cool. So it's very simple. It's literally just a daily newsletter that they sent out on everything in business, tech, finance, and they just email it to you. You can literally read it. It's like a couple pages maybe on your phone. And it goes out at 3 a.m., so it's kind of annoying. I get a notification every morning at 3 a.m. But it's whatever. It's really not that big of a deal. But it gives you a rundown of all the headlines and that's going on right now in the finance, tech, business kind of environment. And I think it's really cool to just have a passive way to look at a couple things, see how the world's unfolding. And also another one that I wanted to point out is Ground News. It's a really cool platform. I think it's paid though. I'm pretty sure it's paid.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I don't use it, but it basically shows you articles from different political spectrums and the biases that are on them. And then you can look at specific issues and see which political parties are, pushing specific issues. And this is not me trying to get political, but it's so we can be more educated in the content that we consume, to know the biases behind it. Who's actually telling us, what to listen to? This is not a game of escape the matrix or, they're trying to brainwash you. It's just being more aware. And you can see that, if you get a more open view of the news, you'll start to see that there's a lot more beautiful things in this world,
There's
right?
a lot of good in the world.
Exactly. That people don't want to really see because good doesn't get clicks. That's reality, is that it doesn't really make them as much money. And this is not me saying that all corporations are evil, but at the end of the day, they're more concerned with green than they are with smiles. So I think that you need to find a reason to smile. And there's a lot out there. There's beauty everywhere you go. And even in the news, and even in this dark, accursed world that is, damaged by us humans, there's still beauty to be found, Saw this video the other day of this couple in Antarctica, and they were just standing in the middle of this path taking a picture, and then this little penguin walks up behind them.
Oh,
and he
yeah.
just stands there patiently and waits for them to finish their picture. And then they see him, and they just split up, and he just walks up the pathway. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. It's so adorable. But that made me smile. It was something that simple. Just seeing a penguin, just... You know what I'm saying? That's how penguins move. Like, I saw that, and that just made me happy. That just made me smile. It was so simple, so easy. So it doesn't take a lot to make you smile. Make your smile free. Make your smile so cheap that it's basically free. And give it out to the world, man. You got a lot of things to give. There's actually this quote that I saw that I really loved. It was... Actually, I can't remember because I think it's quote of the week actually from a previous episode. But the quote was, relatively, I'm paraphrasing it, and I don't know who said it, but it's, I don't really pick and choose with my love. I give it to everybody. Similarly, the sun doesn't choose who to shine on. It just shines.
Yes,
right?
it was a quote, and
Yeah.
I remember exactly where it came from.
Is it from Rick Rubin?
No, it's from the Instagram account. No.
The YouTuber, no, was it I'm Beggar or was it Kinzer MB?
Nope, it was I'm Beggar, the YouTube channel. Yeah.
Okay. Now there's the plug. But
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that's actually very interesting because I don't think it's something we think about. We always like to think that it needs to be exclusive, that like people have to earn your love.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I think that love is such a beautiful thing. Happiness is such a beautiful thing. Your smile is a beautiful thing. Yeah. Your happiness, your positivity is beautiful. So why not let everybody get the chance to experience it?
Dude, I say that too because literally at the end of my final exam, okay, I did something that a lot of people thought was weird, okay? First of all, my teaching assistant for this course, absolute legend. First of all, she explained things super, super well. And on top of that, in the middle of the exam, she walked around the entire class through every single row and individually handed each student a Werther's Original Toffee in the middle of the exam to put a smile on all of our faces, help us de-stress a little bit while writing the exam. And I thought that was super, super nice of her. But also, my professor, I like him a lot. The way he teaches clicks with my brain well. So there's already that. The other thing is, obviously, as a professor, you show up to school in professional attire with a dress shirt, dress pants. But during the final exam, he's wearing a short sleeve, still a shirt, but a short sleeve shirt. And I realized for the first time how jacked my professor was. This guy had massive forearms and like bicep veins. I'm sitting there like, damn, I didn't know you had it like that, Mr. Professor. That's crazy. So once I finished my exam and I walked down, I gave a fist bump to my TA. I was like, you were an amazing TA. I hope you continue to TA for a long time. You're awesome. Thank you so much. And she smiled. Then I walked over to my professor and I said, hey, can I just tell you one thing before I leave? He's like, yeah, what's up? And I said, I just wanted to say you're absolutely jacked and I respect it. And he didn't hear me the first time and he leans in, he's like, what? And then I'm like, I just wanted to say you're absolutely jacked and I respect it. And he just like laughed. He laughed lightly, obviously, because everybody else is writing an exam. Then I gave him a fist bump and I said, have a good day. And I walked out the door. So and then I told my classmates and they were like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I just wanted to put a smile on their face. And it worked. It worked. Everybody was happy. I was happy walking out of the hall knowing that I spread positivity. And that's why you see all those YouTubers out there who go out in the, like, I almost just said in the wild, God, in public, just talking to strangers and saying good things. Like, do you know who Dami is?
No.
He's like a young African-American fellow who like goes around and he's like, there's a clip of him in like a Home Depot talking to a guy and he's like, I don't know how to turn that light bulb on, if you know what I mean. And then the Home Depot owner talks about how he lost his wife and he hasn't laughed like this in a long time. And then they just share him. No. Man, if you guys don't know, you guys probably know. Somebody will know in the comments. But if you don't, go check him out on Instagram and TikTok, I believe. He's a super, super nice guy. Just goes around spreading positivity. And I think we should all try to do the same. But yeah.
I completely agree. And with that, we come to the end of episode 66 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. I should say episode 66, part 2.
Yeah, again.
But thank you guys so much for sticking around. However, before you guys go, you already know what time it is. It is time for Quote
Of
the
Week.
Hit 'em.
Quote of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Accept what you can't change and change what you can't accept. And that is a quote from Angela Davis, an American political activist and philosopher. Now, obviously, this quote is not going to have the same big bang on Mythic as it did last week because obviously I had to use the quote again. But to the rest of you guys hearing that for the first time, very simple, right? In life, there's going to be a lot of things that are out of your control. But I want you to shift your focus to the things you can control, right? What you can't change, you just got to get over it, man. You got to say that's the way life is. If you were born into a certain area, that's the way life is. But what you can change is how you act every single day, how you approach every day. Do you wake up and smile? Do you see these challenges as ways to improve yourself every single day? Because if you shift your mindset and focus on what you can change, only then will you truly be happy.
Thank you guys once again for sticking around to the very end of episode 66 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. We appreciate you joining us for this wonderful ride. Make sure that you go out there and you spread your love and your beauty to every single person out there. Beauty is subjective. It can be as small as a flower or as big as the entire sun or universe. Nobody is telling you what you should find beautiful, but it's up to you. It's about the little things. It ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and get back up and keep moving forward. Take one step after the next. Accept the things that can't change. Change the things that you can't accept. And make sure you live a positive life, y'all. Peace out.